Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Gil Boyne's 100 birthday celebration event. And I'm glad to see so many people live here joining us today for this celebration. Hopefully, many of you have been looking forward to this for kind of the same reason I have been. I didn't know Gil in life. So I'm so excited to listen to the remarks and watch the case studies that we have in store for you all today with Gil at work in all of his glory, and then hear the remarks that follow from three folks, three presenters that knew him quite well. And today, who we have with us is via video because things happen in life, but he still shows up, Dr. John Butler. He's going to be the first queued up. And then we're going to have Catherine Zimmerman as well, talking about Gil and her experience and, experiences with him. And then we also have Randall Churchill. So three people that can really give us a wonderful sense of who he was as the man as we watch him at work in the videos that we have queued up for you today. I'm excited about that. Is everybody else excited about that? Yeah, yay. Okay, so welcome everyone. And what we're going to do, since John unfortunately could not join us live today, he had an emergency. We're going to have Randall Churchill come forward and give a brief introduction about John. Take it away, Randall.
Thank you, Kelly. Hello, everybody. It's good to see so many people, so many friends and graduates, people I know and love. Thank you all for being here for this wonderful celebration of Gil Boyne and on his 100th birthday. Dr. John Butler, I asked him when after Gil Boyne died, I became president of the ACHE. Then after 2 years, I asked John to take over, and then he ultimately became CEO. He has done a fantastic job with the ACHE, and Dr. John Butler is a major person in the field of hypnotherapy, who has trained many professionals, taught all over the various places in Europe and the United States. Fantastic therapist and incredible guide for the ACHE and moving forward in so many different ways after he's become president and CEO. So no one else could have done what has been done with all of the positive things with the ACHE other than him. So going to be great to see what he has to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Randall. We appreciate it. So where we're going to go first is we are going to first cue up the case study that we have that John picked out. And we're going to listen into how Gil worked with this case of Bunny and for her chronic and acute pain in her left arm, and just watch the magic happen. Here we go.
All of those elements, all the chemistry of the body and the healing forces are carried to every part of the body through the blood. And so that's a wonderful knowledge you have now. It makes you feel good just to even think about it and imagine it. When I count to three, let your eyelids open. 1, 2, 3. Let them open. All right, tell us about that movement of your arm.
It's like a miracle. I mean, I know all this stuff in theory,
Sure.
And when at first I thought I went through the thing like a rank amateur and said, "Am I really hypnotized?
Sure.
Am I raising my arm?" And then I knew there isn't any way I could have raised my arm that high. I would hurt from here to back here, all the way over the shoulder. I mean, you can't imagine.
Is that the result of an injury?
No, I think it's trying to come to terms with this wonderful life I have and not having been able to really accept it.
All right. Do you have any questions about your experience?
No, thank you. It's wonderful because nothing hurts.
Thank you very much. Sit back comfortably in your chair. Just look at me. Sleep now. That's it. Let every muscle and every nerve grow loose and limp and relax. Let your arms grow limp. That's fine. Go way down easily, comfortably, and deeply. You know, there's a feeling that you have often. It's very familiar to you. It's a feeling that has to do with feeling helpless about that pain that you've had in your arm for such a long period of time. As I count from 1 up to 10, I want you to become aware of that feeling. 1, 2, 3. It's a feeling like something's wrong with the arm. 4, 5, 6. It's a feeling that's growing stronger now. 7, like the floodgates on a dam opening up, flowing across you in a great wave. Number 9. It's a frightening feeling because it makes you feel very helpless. Number 10. I'm going to count from 3 down to 1, and when I do, I'm going to ask you a question. You won't have to think about the answer. We'll let the answer come up from your subconscious mind. It will come up by spelling, letter by letter, in English, of course. 3, 2, 1. What is it causes this feeling? This feeling of helplessness, fear, anxiety, tension, nervous. The first letter, quickly. The next. F-E, the next. A, the next. Fear. I'm going to tap your forehead. I want you to speak 1 or more sentences using the word fear.
I fear the way things will turn out.
I fear the way things will turn out. Now, I want you to open up the word things when I tap your forehead, some sentences, and you're going to replace the word things with some very specific ideas. Responsive. I'll count from 10 down to 1, and as I do, we're going back to an earlier time. It's a time that has to do with this very same feeling. 10, 9, 8, you're drifting back. 7, 6, 5, you're growing younger now. 4, your arms and legs are shrinking and you're growing smaller. 3, 2, 1. Where you are now, are you indoors or outside? Make a choice quickly.
Indoors.
Indoors. Daytime or nighttime?
Daytime.
You're indoors, it's in the daytime. Are you alone? Someone with you? Others around you?
I'm with my father.
You're with your father. How old are you? 3 years old. How do you feel?
I was feeling really good, but I'm beginning to feel really terrible.
Is it something going on that's making you feel terrible? What is it?
My father's being really bad.
Bad.
He's really drunk, I think.
Drunk. All right, sure. A lot of times when people get drunk, they do bad things. What is it he's doing that is bad?
He's touching parts of my body and he's talking about things that I don't want to hear.
That's right. And you're just a small child, is that right? All right. How do you feel as he's touching you and saying these things that you don't want to hear?
I feel terrible. I feel like throwing up.
Now get ready. Here you go with your adult reasoning mind to look back at that experience and possibly other experiences of that young girl. 3, 2, 1. Good. Tell me about it.
Like in every relationship I've ever had with a man, whether it's a boss, whether it's got a bus driver, or anybody, anybody.
What is the affect that occurs in every relationship?
That you can't really trust.
Sure. Now, here's what I'm going to do. When I count to 3, you'll be seated in the chair. And seated out in front of you, and there's a very strong glass partition in front of you, and you can speak through it. There's an opening, small opening. There sits your father in a chair on the other side. Get ready. 3, 2, 1. Now there he sits, and you can speak to him, and you're safe. How do you address him? What do you call him?
I used to call him Chief Good Guy. God.
You're a woman now. What do you want to call him now?
Crummy son of a bitch.
All right. Say, you crummy son of a bitch, I want to talk to you right now. I want to tell you my real feelings.
I want to tell you my real feelings right now.
Tell it. Tell it.
You pretended so much that you cared about us, you cared about me, and I was so special. And you tried to ruin my life, and you damn near did. I've had to work so hard just to be sane. It's been so hard all these years just to be sane. And I've gotten really good at that. I mean, I am really sane, but I was so crazy for years. I never knew why.
Right. Change places now. Be the father. Answer your daughter.
I never did anything to hurt you. I couldn't do anything to hurt you. I love you. I couldn't do anything to hurt you.
Change. Be the woman.
Well, you did.
Tell him what he did. Say, I now know. And
Nasty things to me. You treated me badly. You made me have no respect for myself. You made me not understand about sex and love.
say to him, you made me feel shame then, and I have been feeling ashamed ever since then. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
Say it to him.
You made me feel ashamed then, and I've been feeling that ever since then. Ever since then.
Be the father. Answer your daughter.
Well, I didn't mean to do anything. I was drinking it.
Well, it's 1 year later, and surprise, here's Bunny.
Well, even the next day, although my arm was a little sore, my shoulder was a little sore. I had not been able to move my arm higher than here for many months. And you moved it a great deal that day when I was in hypnosis, and I found that it was a little sore from being moved, having not been moved. And then I found that it took with exercising, moving it, using it in ways that I hadn't, that I had complete use back in just a matter of, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
The muscles regained their tone.
Yes.
Really interesting. And now we're going to have remarks from Dr. John Butler.
Hello, I'm John Butler, and it's a privilege to be here speaking with you about Gil Boyne, his work, his legacy, his work with ACHE, and a little bit about him as a person. It would take a long time to go into sufficient detail to really let you know about the wonderful qualities this person had and the amazing amount he has contributed to our field. The little clip you've seen there is just a combination of a few snippets from a video called The Bunny. I think you're going to see a video called Bud and one on another case called Lee. And each of these gives some idea of his work, commonly called transforming therapy. His therapeutic work, which has become the basis of so much of modern hypnotherapy, although not often acknowledged. And sometimes there are versions of it, transformative, transformational, and so on out there. But the original was called transforming therapy. And it's a very free-form form of therapy that requires a lot of development in the therapist, that they have deep knowledge about the human mind and its development. They develop key traits of the effective therapists, which is very important for the therapeutic relationship, that they're able to go deep into the core of the problems to make the most profound and most lasting change. And it's also important the therapists are on their path of self-development to help the client with theirs. In his work, Gil always displays a great deal of commitment to the client, with paying extraordinary levels of attention and making then excellent therapeutic choices. And we all will make our own. However, we must get to the underlying issues as far as possible, as quickly as we can as well, for the client's sake. He works very well with the therapeutic relationship, making great communication with that person, so that they trust and open up with him. He works on deep principles, and these are important for us as therapists. It's not random. It's not just flying by the seat of the pants. To improvise, you need a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, and a lot of creative talent, being able to trust your own judgment, your own abilities. In this clip with Bunny, we see that he picks up a lot of information and clues. Some he just leaves aside for the moment, but is intending to come back to them later. Now, you won't be able to pick that all up from the short clip, that short segment you've seen there. And that requires courage with the therapist to understand what they're doing and the needs of the client, helping her discharge a lot of shame and the guilt and anger and feeling very negative at times about herself. He goes through the process of re-education, having new perceptions with her, helping her see these for herself, checking out then that his interventions are accurate. And he gives her really new revelations about life and about herself. So she can move into further stages of forgiveness, self-forgiveness as well, and begin to create really a new life for herself. And we see that in 1 year later, how much more life there is in her eyes. That phony smiling she had at the beginning, which was really just dissipating tensions and fears, is replaced by a real feeling of connection with life and with energy. And that's the goal of transforming therapy, to reconnect people with life and with their potential. And Gil Boyne did that par excellence in his own life, coming out of as he would describe it, a mixed race ghetto with a lot of problems due to lack of education, poverty, with an abusive father who bullied him, beat him, the father having alcohol problems, and him not getting a great deal of support a lot of the time from his own mother. However, he overcame those through his own efforts and was a great believer in self-reliance, self-empowerment. That was core in his belief system. And as his life was very tough in his younger years, and he wasn't able to go to college, wasn't financially possible, he ended up in the Navy in World War II as a very young man at 19, and came out of it obviously with problems. And then he had to sort of create his own destiny. And he worked with hypnotherapy. He learned from other great therapists that were around at the time, and was always would give credit to where he learned from. His therapy wasn't just a collection, a kind of patchwork quilt of ideas. He took from other people, internalized what was going on for himself, understanding the principles of what they were doing, and he developed his own approach to therapy. And that's what we all must do, of course. He developed a very, very, very effective style, and that became, it's not really a style as such. It's his whole ethos, personality, his whole being that is involved in this therapy. He went on to work with many, many clients and became a very successful therapist. So much so that celebrities flocked to him. He was named by the press as therapist of the stars. His client list was like a who's who of Hollywood. And he developed then his teaching courses within his HTI of Los Angeles, Hypnotism Training Institute. And he was such a vibrant force of nature that was determined not to let anything stop him in his path of helping people and putting out the very best quality of therapy. And when books were not available on the subject, is a far cry from nowadays, something we can't really imagine even, he developed his own company, Westwood Publishing, which we still keep going. And he took his therapy then around the world, training therapists in many countries. He toured the world 5 times and has helped people set up training schools in many, many countries. And the current profession of hypnotherapy outside of the academic world would not be what it is at all without the work of Gil Boyne. one of his projects was to have a regulatory body that would be self-regulating, really, but with the highest and best standards for the profession, for helping the public get the very best therapy. And so the American Council of Hypnotists and Examiners was founded by Gil in 1980 after 6 attempts in California with other bodies which were trying to make an organization that people in the field could gather together and work constructively, creatively, and working on a fairly democratic model, but they fell apart with schisms, personality clashes. And so when he set up the ACHE, he wanted to be a 501, which it is. He wanted it to serve its members, a member-owned organization. At the core of it, of course, was Gil, and other people were involved in helping him. You'll know Randall Churchill, who was there from the very early days, and so on. He developed the ACHE, the really fighting force, and helped defeat many, many legislative attempts to stop so-called lay hypnotherapy, a term he didn't appreciate, because he felt that these therapists were the ones who knew the topic, who knew the subject matter, who knew what hypnotherapy really was about and could apply very well in the therapeutic setting. And so he was fearless and very powerful in that, very combative at times, based on his passion for the subject and for helping people. He marked his own scorecard in life, though he will listen to people. He was a very sensitive man. Many people never got to know that part of him. I was a very close friend for many years. We taught together in many cities over the world, particularly in his last decade, and I got to know him very well. I'd known him a long time before that, and I trained with many eminent people in the field of hypnotherapy from within the academic world and outside of it. But Gil was an exception to all of them. He was a very powerful, creative individual, a very spiritual person in many ways, and sensitive, as I mentioned, and very, very personally responsible in his life. He really believed you have to create your own destiny. Thank you for listening and watching.
Thank you, John. Well, how wonderful. This is so nice to be able to get a personal and better bird's eye view into the man that founded this association. We're so lucky to have John as our executive director. Who we're also lucky to have is the wonderful and talented Catherine Zimmerman, who is now, we're going to hand things off to her.
I'll give you a tiny introduction for those of you who don't know me. I've been in hypnotherapy, graduated from Angel School in 1989, and I've been in practice ever since. And when my family says, well, don't you want to retire? I think, why would I do that? That's just silly. 35 years and counting, because it's still fun and I'm still enjoying it. And we're going to watch today a little bit of my favorite of Gil's work, which is The Case of Bud. And then we'll talk a little bit about that afterward.
Well, I need help in other areas. I need self-confidence. I have a loss of memory. I still seem to remember anything. It seems like I need help in just about every area. I can't sing, I can't dance. Nothing right. I do everything wrong. You even whistle, eh? No, I can't. Give me a brief rundown about your thoughts and feelings about what's been going on here up until the time I called you up. Well, I'm not so sure it's exactly. This is another thing that bothers me. That all you people are educated, and I'm not. I don't have this expression. I see what when you go into a diner and order ham and eggs, sure, and you have the power to communicate, don't you? What's strictly on one liner? Yeah. Talk to me. What are your thoughts and feelings about what's been going on? Well, all the time I'm watching what's been going on here on TV, couldn't help but think, I wish to God that you could do for me what you've done for these people. So, set them free. Yeah. That's what I want. Good. Mhm. Look at each person and tell me what you see. It's going to be quite easy for you to do. But you're going to be surprised at what you see. Now, first, I know these lights are in your eye. Look out at some of these faces that you can see. Look around. Tell me what it is that you see. Friendly faces. You see friendship. Look again and tell me what it is that you see. Well, I just see people that I like. Yeah, I feel a feeling of liking for those people. Now look around again and tell me what you see. I think I see people that are with me. Yeah. Want to use a word to characterize that? With me? I might say, hey, I don't. Go ahead, take a chance. Believe me? Yeah. Look around again. And what is it that you see? I think they believe me. Yeah. Look again. What is it that you see? Nice. Look again. See if you can see growing in friendship. Well, you put a question mark. Look again. Well, welcome to the world. Thank you. We make ourselves blind, and we're unable and unwilling to see the love and approval that surrounds us all of the time. And so we alienate ourselves and keep ourselves away from the world and project out that somehow they find us unloving. It's a painful and difficult task to reveal ourselves, to become open, and to say, here I am, naked, strengths and weaknesses. I hope you'll find some part of me to love. And if not, well, then I can accept that too, for that's the way it is. And there are others in the world who have love for me, to nourish me, and will encourage and excite me to express love that is nourishing to them. Love makes the world go round. Till the next time, this is Gil Boyne.
So a couple of things that you might not know about that whole time that Gil's worked with Bud. Bud had sent a letter to Gil asking him to work with him when he was in town. I think they were in or around Chicago. And he'd heard about Gil's reputation and wanted a session with him. So Gil invited him to sit in on class. So he sat there for 2 days and watched Gil work his magic with these other people, which I see is setting him up for success, because if it worked for them, Gil's more hopeful now, or Bud's more hopeful now that it will work for him. So he's already in that mindset of seeing the power of transformation in working with Gil. Then he has a session the first day. He comes back the next day. He has 2 sessions total. And at the end, he goes from being, the subtitle of this video is Born to Lose, the case of Bud, born to lose. And one of the things he says in that video that I don't think is captured in this little clip is that he said, Bud says, just give me enough time and I'll mess it up. Didn't matter what it was, he would be able to mess it up because he's a loser. And that's how he sees himself. He was been divorced for 30 years. He's in a bad relationship with his kids. He took care of his mother, drank 5-star scotch, I think he called it, before going to bed every night in order to sleep. His life was a mess, couldn't retire, didn't want to work anymore, but nothing worked in his life. After these 2 sessions with Gil, Bud retired. He made other arrangements for his mother. He moved from Illinois to Florida, met a wonderful woman, and remarried. And this came from Bud's sister, who wrote Gil a letter thanking him and saying, here's the update on what happened with my brother after the work you did with him. Pretty amazing. 2 sessions. And at the beginning, it's an old video, so it's hard to see, but clearly he looks like he looks like the loser he claims to be at the beginning. And at the end, he's glowing. He is seeing love around him. What a shift. That is my favorite video of all the videos I have of Gil working. That's my favorite. So one of the things that John mentions in his, that Gil was a sensitive man, I see that side of Gil. I have to tell you, I didn't see that side of Gil early on. I called the office one day before the conference, my first year of speaking, to ask the general manager about having a table. And John Young, the general manager, was out of the office, and I got Gil. It did not go well for me. I was thoroughly intimidated by Gil. And I got off the phone and I called Randall, and I said, Randall, now what? What am I going to do? Randall said, keep your head down, get a table. It'll be fine. Just go. It'll be fine. And that's what I did. And fast forward a few years, I'm at the conference, and there's an evening with Gil Boyne at the very beginning of the conference. And I got to the hotel and dragged my bags into the back of the room because I thought, it's politically correct to show up for that kind of thing. So I showed up and I sat in the back and I watched Gil in front of the room, and I'm moving my camera so I can, there we go. And I saw a side of Gil I'd never seen before. He was thoroughly interested and engaged. He had people come up and talk about themselves and their practice and where they trained. And he was just beaming love to each and every one of these people. Then he would insert a little story from his practice. Then he'd have somebody else come up. Everybody got a chance to come up and talk about themselves. And that's the first time I saw, outside the gruffness that Gil presented, I saw his heart. And I had this epiphany. I thought, why have I never trained with Gil? So I took 2, not 1, but 2 of his advanced trainings, flew to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he lived at the time. And I took a training with him. Now, I just have to tell you that when Gil gave his students a break, he would say, now we're all going to shop. And he would have us go into the room where he had all of his books for sale, because now we're going to shop while you're on break. It was hilarious. The other thing I wanted to bring up, he talked again about love. At the end of that thing, Gil talked about love and receiving love. And that's the big thing. We can love other people. Can we bring it in? So there was another time at the conference, somebody, maybe it was you, Randall, I don't remember, was saying really wonderful things about Gil, complimenting him. And I watched Gil. He was standing over to the side of the room, and I watched him. He was just taking it in. He wasn't saying, don't say all those good things. Oh, let me discount what you're saying. I can't receive compliments. He just soaked it up. And I thought, I think that's how we're supposed to do. We're supposed to just be able to receive love, not just give it, to receive it. And Gil modeled how he could receive love. It was a beautiful moment. I wish everybody could see this example of how to receive love and compliments, and not say to the person complimenting you, oh, well, that's really not true, because Gil didn't do that. We could all learn from that. It was just, I went from being so intimidated. Well, I say so intimidated to a degree by Gil. I did. But I also saw his heart and his humanity. I benefited so much. And when I show his videos to my students, they love Gil. I sent them his full obituary a year or 2 ago, and now I share it with all of my students because it gives them a deeper feeling for the man doing the therapy. And they've all written to me to say, thank you so much for letting us read as much life story as we have of Gil. This is the obituary that John Butler wrote. And they appreciate who he was and not just how he did the therapy. And I think it's important to see the full picture of who Gil was. And he's here with us today. He wouldn't miss this. So I'm really excited to be here and share a little bit with you of Gil's work and who he was as a person. I felt honored that he considered me a friend. And I wish everybody could have had a chance, if you didn't have, to get to know Gil as a human being. He was a beautiful soul, just beautiful. So I will turn it back to you, Kelly.
Such beautiful remarks. Man, this man was incredible, and so many of us over time, those of us who have been practicing for quite some time, we get in this lane of how we do things. And the beauty of reviewing a lot of his work is that I am taking in some bits and pieces, nuggets of how to do things a little different, even after I've been practicing for 15 years, and it's good to refresh and adopt and learn from people. We always continue to learn. We're the perpetual students, especially those of us who teach. All right, so now our third panel speaker is the wonderful and talented Randall Churchill. He is going to give you a brief introduction of him, and then we will do our next, we will queue up our next video. Randall. Yeah.
So again, it's great to see all you wonderful people. I'm so glad for the turnout that we have, and I know it's being recorded, so more people will be able to see this. I am so grateful for my very early experience of Gil starting as a teenager and the tremendous influence he's had on my life. And so I'm director of the Hypnotherapy Training Institute. Gil, when he created, and I was with him with the previous entity, which was the most important one in the field at the time for general hypnotherapists, and that was the Hypnotist Examining Council of California in 1973, which Gil soon became president, and used that as a springboard to create the ACHE in 1980. And so I was on the board of directors of the HEC and continued with Gil in 1980. So director of the Hypnotherapy Training Institute and author of several books. So and I'm just so glad we're doing this. I'm so glad that the ACHE has put this together for the 100th birthday of Gil Boyne. Look forward to saying a bunch of things about him. I think we'll show the video first. Is that right, Kelly?
That's correct. Here we go.
And how can I help you today?
I've stammered all my life, off and on. It goes from upscale, downscale. Right now, I'm pretty much determined to handle it as best I can because I don't like to have people see me stutter. When I do, I feel about this big.
Mhm. 3, 2, 1, sleep. Just go way down, loosely, limply relaxing. I'm going to count from 10 down to 1. As I do, we're going back to a time and a place that has to do with the very same feeling. 10, 9, 8, you're drifting back. 7, 6, 5, you're growing younger now. 4, your arms and legs are shrinking, growing smaller. 3, 2, 1. Where you are now, are you indoors or outside? Make a choice quickly.
I'm inside.
Daytime or nighttime?
Daytime.
Are you alone or others with you or around you?
I'm with my mother.
How old are you?
I think about 6.
6 years old. All right, it's daytime, you're indoors, you're with your mother, you're 6 years old. Give a report. What's going on?
No, I got to give a poem. Or a little talk on stage at PTA. And my mother, I have to know perfectly, so and give it perfectly. So they're going over and over again. She's very strict on expression and
Mother's kind of a perfectionist, huh?
Well,
where this is concerned.
She used to teach dramatics and before
I
she got
see.
married.
Tell her your feeling. She told you why she felt she had to be perfect as a child. And tell her how you feel about her putting that same feeling on you.
Mom, it's real difficult to satisfy you in saying that
that poem exactly the way you wanted.
Mhm.
And with all the expression and everything else in it, it just. I want to please you.
Mhm. But I don't feel I can live up to your standard.
But I don't feel I can live up to your standards.
Mhm. Mhm. Let your mind grow clear. I'm going to count from 1 up to 10. Come up to this time and place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're a grown man now. You see, perfectionism is a curse. It's one of the ways that those who suffer from an intense fear of criticism attempt to cope with it. And the rationale is, if I do it perfectly, then I can't be criticized. Or in the child's case, the mother in effect was saying, if the child does it perfectly, he can't be criticized, and credit will come to me as his mother for helping him and training him. Approval will come to me. Look how well she trained him. After all, if your own mother can't approve of you, then you must be a phony. You must not be very worthwhile. You must really be unlovable. That's the way the child would reason it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to count from 3 down to 1. I want you now to look back, but this time to do it differently. I want you to bring into play your adult reasoning mind. I want you to look at that boy and look at his mother as well. And I want you to see that relationship and how certain feelings developed in him and how those feelings created certain thoughts. And then how those thoughts and feelings affected him as he grew, and how they affected him as a young man, and how those same thoughts and feelings are affecting you today. Now, I want you to look at it, analyze it. You get a lot of understanding, awareness, and insight coming from it. When you're ready to talk about it, just lift your hand like this, and we'll talk further about it. All right, 3, 2, 1. Now look back and analyze the experiences of that boy. Are you ready to give up the defensive patterns of the 6-year-old boy?
Damn right.
Okay. Repeat after me. I am free.
I am free.
Mm-hmm. Make some statements about that now.
I am free. That means I don't have to. I can be me, and if you can accept that, I can.
Mm-hmm.
I can.
All right. Now open your eyes. Open them up. Look out at the world and say this to them. I don't have to live up to your expectations of me.
I don't have to live up to your expectations of me.
And that means.
And that means.
Tell them what it means.
Just means I can just be me, and if you like that, that's fine. We'll get along. And if you don't, that's your problem, not mine.
Gil Boyne was bigger than life. He was such a dynamo. And there is so much I was thinking about. There's so many things I could say about Gil Boyne, the hypnotherapist of the century, the award he got about that, the honorary PhDs, honorary doctorates he got, and so forth. But part of what I'd like to say is something personal about, some personal things along the way. He was, but for perspective, he was such a leader so early. I was very blessed to meet him before I started college in the late 60s. And how I met him was through marathon encounter groups that he and his dear wife, Ann Boyne, were leading, which they were based on everything that Gil knew about the subconscious mind, and bringing in Gestalt, bringing in bioenergetics, bringing in cutting edge things that were being developed humanistic and transpersonal psychology. They personally went to Esalen, where Gil Boyne was putting Esalen on the map with his great work and developing Gestalt therapy. And so these groups, which would go for 6 or 7 hours on Friday nights past midnight, and all day on Saturday and into the late night on Saturday, were extremely intense. And I was someone desperately in need of therapy. And so I took some of these marathon groups with Gil, some of them with Anne. And they were both so very powerful. One story I can tell to deal with the emotional clearing work we were dealing with is there were a group of about a dozen of us, and he had everybody pin me down for the way I felt in my life. And when I exploded and found my way out of that, in the ensuing drama that was happening without me touching Gil, as he was frantically moving around to direct me over to a sofa to use a tennis racket to start smashing it. He twisted and broke his ankle, and as the ambulance had been called and was coming, he had me come over and was, pointing out to me, "This is good, get it out," but to do it, in the right context and all of that. Anger that I'd held back all my life. And one of the things I did with the sofa, we were in a two-story room in this mansion that they had on Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles. And it was a huge sofa. I grabbed the sofa from the bottom and I flipped it up, and it almost hit the ceiling of this two-story room. So there were some pretty dramatic things happening in that. And that's how I met him, not directly through hypnosis. And then a friend of mine who I had met through that, Bill Peterson, was telling me about hypnosis, and ended up hypnotizing me for the minor surgery I was going to have in a few days, in about a week, because I remember he taught me how to, during that one session, how to do my own self-hypnosis, and the doctor couldn't believe how much I had improved and didn't need the surgery after all on my big toe. So I immediately joined the self-hypnosis class, and then the next one, and he had just started professional trainings the last couple of years, and was already doing major things in the field of hypnotherapy. In terms of the therapy that he was developing, his famous induction techniques and so forth, but also politically, in 1967, he made a tremendous difference during the Psychology Licensing Act, which was being formed, and personally lobbied for several days in Sacramento to protect the field of hypnotherapy, the developing field of hypnotherapy that's been loosely called, the language of that refers to hypnotherapists, loosely been called the Gil Boyne Amendment. So became very active with him in the 1970s and beyond, with everything the ACHE was doing. So Gil was already very influential in the field of hypnotherapy in various ways. And as John pointed out, developed Westwood Publishing Company, which was the first publishing company of any size that was specifically for hypnotherapy, and so on and so forth, making tremendous differences later on, the writing of his classic work, Transforming Therapy. He was editor of a book about nurses and so on and so forth, and putting together so many great videos and audios. And when I took his self-hypnosis class, it would be filled with 30 or 40 people, and I kept coming back to it. And truly, I am confident that he was the world's greatest self-hypnosis teacher. He would have, 3-hour classes 8 weeks in a row. So 8 Tuesday nights or 8 Wednesday nights, whatever. And he was so inspiring. And I took my first professional training class. I never dreamed that I'd be a hypnotherapist. And at that point, I was just not quite 18. And I graduated high school a year early for skipping a grade, and so I was going about to start college, but he let me in, and I just wanted to be with him and learn more. And I was just loved hypnotherapy. I loved the experience with myself. I was practicing on my friends, and it just evolved from there. So Gil Boyne was the hypnotherapist of the century. He gave us so much, and I appreciate very much what Catherine was saying about his heart, and John. He had such a big heart. When I was 17, I was able to spend a summer at their home. We became very, very close with he and his wife, and I obviously this has had a tremendous influence in my life, personally as well as professionally. I very much appreciate, and one of the things that after he had had such a fantastic career training hypnotherapists, uh, uh, and then retired from that and moved to London, and continued from there, and back in New Mexico, and then back in London, and so teaching really in so many places in the world. And in his last years, he and John Butler were doing so much together. I was able to have just about 5 years and 6 years before he died, I was able to have him come, and he and John Butler come to do some 4 days of continuing education for hypnotherapists at my institute in Corte Madera near San Francisco. And it was always such a wonderful experience to be with Gil, and I know visiting him, as I did a couple of times in London when he was living there in the 1990s, and then again later, and being able to be with he and Anne was always such a joy to me. So I he moved mountains, and he is an inspiration to all of us to set your sights on something, and being the visionary that he was, the power that we all have in our subconscious minds, that we're as Fritz Perls said, we are far greater than our wildest imagination, than our wildest dreams. He said that within the context of the dream work. And we can see that in Gil Boyne, who had such a tough upbringing, would have had every excuse to move into violence or alcoholism, or you know you know uh, tremendous lack of self-worth, and all of that, and what he was able to do. And one more story, I think, that gives an example of that transcends, I think, all of the awards that he had. There was such a fight going on in the 1980s to the early 90s, and has continued with turf battles in different ways, but a tremendous shift happened in the early 1990s, and that had to do with particularly the association, the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis, which was a specific group at the time for psychologists and physicians, and eventually expanded to other licensed psychotherapists. And at the time, and was beginning, I think, to start to expand to some degree to that. And D. Corey Dunn Hammond, who's the editor of what I call the Big Red Book, the Handbook of Hypnotic Suggestions and Metaphors, which is a major book in the field, he was the president of the ASCH, and he was absolutely fanatical about what he called lay hypnotists, and that subject, was noted before. Now, I want to say what a misnomer that is, because when you have, as Gil Boyne created the first state licensed school in hypnotherapy, and mine was one of the first four, and when you have states, as a result of the recognition of the profession by the Department of Occupational, by the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, the United States Department of Labor, recognizing the field and recognizing that therefore throughout the states you have to get the proper license or approval for your school. And Gil Boyne led that and led the DO, was part of the influence of the DOT. And so when you have schools being licensed by state governments to train people to become hypnotherapists, that's not lay. That's not a lay, a lay is someone who is not a professional. You are a professional if you've gone through a state licensed or approved school. So I guess I think I can still be heard as the stutterer is coming back on here, but I hope I can still be heard. But
We can still hear you, Randall. We're just
okay.
John's closing remarks.
So what happened was that after years of attacks and trying to stop us in states, trying to repress, limit the field of hypnosis to just psychologists and so forth, Hammond finally threw in the towel because he saw what ACHE was doing as a result of the leadership of Gil Boyne. And he got together with Gil and he had a meeting with him, and he likened the meeting to identifying with what happened with Begin and Sadat after the Six-Day War between Israel and Egypt, and the way they came together and made peace. And he said, this is in the hypnotherapy field, us coming together now was what was the equivalent of what happened with the peace accords, the Camp David Accords, with Begin and Sadat. And so for that man who was so extreme and so negative to embrace the ACHE, and he even reached the point of saying that he wanted the ASCH to support the ACHE in establishing registration and certification of hypnotherapists in states. And he went to his board about that, by the way, and they said, okay, look, we're not gonna go out of our way to help them, but we'll stop getting in their way and let them go ahead and make progress and establish themselves in the field more and all of that. So for Gil to do that is just an example of thinking beyond the box and breaking through and doing new things and being such a leader and changing the world as he's done. He's, the field of hypnotherapy is doing so much good in the world, and we're doing so much better that there are so many licensed psychotherapists doing it, and so many medical practitioners, and so many coaches and body workers and so forth. And so much of that beyond the psychotherapy field wouldn't be able to be done without the leadership of Gil Boyne throughout not only the United States, but Attila. I just saw that a message from Attila,
sorry, Randall,
who
short
was
on time.
out how he went to Hungary and made such a difference there and in so many other countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Randall. Thank you for those remarks. So I know that we're getting a little short on time, so we're going to wrap up with Dr. John Butler again, giving his closing remarks, as well as his vision that ACHE has for the future. Stand by. And then we're going to take Q&A if people want to stay and ask questions of our panel. Here we go.
Hello, John Butler here again, and I will also say a few words to close this short celebration event on the 100th anniversary of Gil Boyne's birth. And say a few words quickly about the future as well, as we've been looking a little bit at the legacy of Gil Boyne and his work, which has provided so much of the foundation, the pillars of modern hypnotherapy. We're able to look at the future then better as we understand the past. And the past is a great start for where we're going. The future is really up to us, putting aside our fears, doubts, and so on. And we're limited really only by our beliefs. That's certainly no cliche. As we look to the future, we need to keep developing the transforming therapy, or our own version of therapy, whatever labels we put on it. We keep on developing ourselves as therapists, as individuals, keep developing the ACHE for its service to the public and developing the profession. We are standing on the shoulders of giants, is an old saying, and it's so true. We can build on so much that's already there, and we have the creative imagination within us, a creative mind that can take us to really probably an unimaginable future from where we're now sitting. The ACHE is a member-led, member-owned organization, and it's up to the members to step up to contribute, whether it's through boards, committees, and so on. We need your help. We want to take this organization to its fullest possible potential, expression of that potential. We want to connect really with the mainstream world so that hypnotherapy is seen really as the most powerful healing method for the mind and for human beings' needs out there in the world so much that can't be answered by the traditional psychological therapies as they currently are, and medicine for many of the problems you've just seen, one with Bunny, which where medicine was not having any effects, it would not be an appropriate approach to helping her. So we want to take the therapy into a new level of credibility, of professionalism. We keep working on our standards, on our education, continuing education, and so on. There is a day in the future where ACHE will be involved, linked with research bodies, with educational bodies in the mainstream, within academia, and so on, and will provide a really powerful beacon of light for the public, that people can go to ACHE knowing it has standards and it has a form of regulation in place that they can depend on for good ethical therapists who are bound by the ethics and the training standards of that organization. So we will also be building the profession in lots of other ways as well, as long as people can come together to work together to make the profession what it can be, such a powerful force in the world. We're dealing with the deepest nature within human beings. The most powerful force in the universe is deep in the human mind, the creative energy. Now, within the world of politics, we have to deal with the reality of things as they are, but ACHE will continue to do a good job of self-regulation and make that better and better. And so that government can look to an organization like ACHE and have a degree of oversight of it, but that we are not tied up with the overreach of government and the bureaucracy of government, that ACHE is a very thriving, creative, self-financing, self-developing organization. We need your help to do it. This is the dream of Gil Boyne, to have the ACHE within the US and linked with organizations outside of the US. And he had always a vision for an international CHE, one could call it that, that would be helping out in countries where, for political reasons, ACHE might not be able to plant its flag, so to speak, in those regions. The world is open to us. It's what we make of it. We're not to be dismayed by setbacks of what happens with economies, corruption, the degraded politics, or anything else. so that we can make our own lives better, the organization better, and us as therapists to provide the absolute very best for the public. This was Gil Boyne's passion. I hope we all share it in the same spirit, and I look forward to working with all of you and cooperating then with our board and all the people in ACH already who are doing such a great job. Please help us and make the ACHE and the profession everything it can be. Thank you very much for listening and watching.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. John Butler. Okay, we're coming to the end of our program. We're going to, in a moment, open it up to Q&A for anyone who is wanting to ask our panel any questions. But first, I'd like to thank Dr. John Butler. I'd like to thank Catherine Zimmerman and Randall Churchill for their remarks and insight into the man on his 100th birthday. Does anyone have any questions that they want to direct their comment them to, and you might want to say who you're asking your question of? Let me ask this real quick to both Randall and Catherine, because we're told to not lead our client, right? But there was something that Gil did, that he jumped in during the age regression and said to one of the subjects, "It's safe to say that you felt something," right? But it wasn't what the client actually said. Is that considered leading?
Well, I would say that Gil was using his intuition to get to the essence of what he felt, that the feelings. He was very good. He was very empathic, and so I would feel like, and nobody is perfect, but I feel if he was correct on that it was fair game for him to say that. Let's put it that way. And I think what his intention was not to lead, but to maybe help something to develop that what the person was trying to say. So I would say, and he would almost always be correct on that.
Well, and he would ask the client if that was true. And yeah, I concur. Randall's, that's exactly what how I would respond to that.
That jumped out at me, so I was just wondering if it might have jumped out to some of the other members too. Okay, we have
that question because it's a very important issue. It's very important for us not to lead when doing therapy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the comment. Davidian, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, that's correct. Hi.
Okay. Hi.
I also have a similar question, age regression wise. I believe it was from the first video you had with Bunny. And it seemed like he was doing an affect bridge, but he didn't mention age. He said you're shrinking. And I don't know if it was truncated, the video, and that's why I missed it. But he was saying you're shrinking, you're shrinking, you're shrinking to imply a different age, but he never said that. And it just was intuited by the client that that was the case. And so I was just hoping to get some clarification. Is that what truly happened? Or did I misinterpret what I was watching?
Well, I don't remember the exact words of what was shown, and yes, it was truncated, but Gil will consistently, at the very least, when you're going back in time and getting younger, that kind of thing. So I would assume that there was something like that in there and it was understood. And, he would never say you're going back to a particular age exactly, but we wanted to make it very clear that you're going to go back to a much earlier time when you felt these feelings and doing the affect bridge.
Because there was nothing mentioning age whatsoever. It was just you're shrinking, you're shrinking, you're shrinking, and that was implied. So that was probably in there.
Well, he was also working with one of his own graduates who was a hypnotherapist.
So in other words, it was understood by her.
Yeah.
Maybe he did. I'll trust you that he did miss at that time, but she'd seen plenty of regressions and she understood, and he could get away with that and with a graduate that had seen that many times, because he would normally say that.
Thank you.
Good question. Anyone else?
Quick question. It was actually for Randall, because he was mentioning about what Gil has done in the policies and things like that. And my question is really, what are your thoughts on having hypnotherapy now regulated, sort of like psychotherapy, so that we can now be given more opportunities and respect in the field, the medical fields? Because now there's a lot more therapy schools that are not teaching hypnotherapy, as well as the ACHE ones.
Well, it's a complex issue, and it's not a yes or a no. It depends upon what kind of regulation. To give two examples real quickly, there was a developing regulation that started to happen in California, where we were going to become state registered, and Gil and I thought that was a very good idea, and we were part of a group of 9 in Sacramento that was working through to try to get that legislation through, which as you point out, with all of the schools that do not conform to the law, that are not state approved or state licensed, that are around, and usually quite superficial and all of that, it certainly has been and is an issue. So what happened was we almost got it through. We got it through the Assembly with flying colors. It failed in the Senate because the Department of Consumer Affairs that was going to be in charge of us was saying, you're cutting back, we're in a recession, you're not giving us any money for this. So it was flawed in that way. A couple years later, it was attempted again to create that, but the current governor at the time was saying, well, you're not going to be able to give yourself a title, we'll give you all these ways to get in trouble, and there was no value to us in doing that. It was very good legislation the first time, not the second. The other example I'll give was something that at the time seemed very good, and that was the first direct certification by the state in a state, and that was in Indiana, and it was through the Board of Medical Quality Assurance, which would give us the same kind of standing as a chiropractor. I mean, this was humongous. And so we were able to get that passed in 1998. It required 300 hours, so the equivalent of being a clinical hypnotherapist in the ACHE. Many of my graduates, we didn't have to be in Indiana. Many of my graduates joined, and when it became effective in 2000, the year 2000, I was Indiana Certified Hypnotherapist number 000006. Cheryl Canfield was 007. If you abbreviate it. And what happened was really a lesson, because over the next couple of years, now the Indiana government was in control. So let's make it 500 hours instead of 300 hours. Let's make a requirement you have to have 150 hours of videotapes, as just DVDs were just getting ready to, just starting to come in. So it had to be 150 hours of videotapes. There are only 2 schools that could get, and let's make a really, really, really tough exam. And so they did all of those things. And there was one school in Indiana and one school in London was able to get the 500 hours. And you could count on probably one hand the number of people that were able to continue to get certified in Indiana. So I had a student that came in years later and had been was a friend of the governor, had been a mayor, and he said, "What can we do about this?" And I said, what Gil and I had felt and what everybody else had felt, that you're going to be meeting with the governor. Can you tell him to see if there's some way to get rid of this law that is stifling the field so much? And that was part of the influence, and we weren't the only ones, but we were able to get rid of that law. So it's a case by case basis, but being aware that when you get something that is government, that the government starts regulating further than it already is, then things can get out of our hands.
All right. Thank you for that, Randall. I think Anna's next.
Thank you, Kelly. And Randall, thank you so much for more of the history about the ACHE, especially the relationship between the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis and the ACHE. I'm finding the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis very proprietary about their journal. And I'll not say much about that, but they do present obstacles for things that could be useful to what they call, to what they call lay hypnotherapists. So, I'll tackle that on my own to some extent with help. But just, just to be able to get articles easily that I can get through a university. But membership is so proprietary with them. It's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's kind of the rule of the road in general with organizations, and we had that incredible breakthrough in the early '90s. But eventually things moved on, and things go back to the way that they're not like they were before. I mean, there were not like thousands of letters being sent all over restrict hypnosis. They're not doing that anymore, but they are still continuing to be proprietary. And you get that with the Milton Erickson Foundation.
Yes.
The Society for Clinical and Experimental Hypnosis, the third kind of main group and that group I think is even more restricted and will only accept psychologists and physicians still, I believe, unless something has changed with them. So being proprietary is classic. In the 1980s, the AMA was successfully sued by the chiropractors because of all they were being trashed, and so you've got that in every field where people want to kind of protect their turf.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, if that's okay. Hello there, everybody. Thank you. Where can we buy DVDs of Lead a Stutterer or any other DVDs, maybe of Gil Boyne working?
Check with Westwood Publishing. John Butler has it.
I was just on their site and they don't have, only 2 DVDs they have.
He's the main source for them, so find out when they're going to be available. I would ask him, send an email to Westwood Publishing, ask when they'll be available.
Thank you.
Okay.
There are a lot of videos of Gil that and DVDs that hopefully Westwood will start making more of them available.
All right. Thank you for that. Take it away, Bridget.
Thank you. I just want to say I appreciated my my studies at HTI while I was doing them, but I'm kind of blown away. It inspired me completely. I love what the ACHE has been able to offer in terms of continuing education, and I've had the benefit of working with Catherine Zimmerman, who's incredible. And every now and then I meet someone who says, "Oh, I'm a certified hypnotherapist," and I get all excited. And I think, "Oh, great!" And I want to talk to them like, "Do you do more of a direct or indirect? And how do you, what's your style? And And they're like, "What are you talking about?" Or I'll say, "Well, do you feel more Ericksonian, or do you feel more like this, or do you kind of come from this angle?" And they literally have no training outside of this really narrow, really specific, brief training that they took, and they do this thing in a certain way. And I'd say, "Well, where's your certification?" Not to demean what they do, but it makes me always so grateful that you all have given us such a foundation and such a profound professional spectrum of community and support. It's a big deal, and I don't want the government to decide who gets to be a hypnotherapist, but I definitely send people to ACHE when they're looking for quality and integrity and reliability in their hypnotherapists. So I just want to say thank you. Thanks, Randall. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you so much. This has been a fabulous opportunity to celebrate Gil's 100th birthday, the founder of what it is that we are all so pleased to be a part of. and for Kelly for your monitoring, and for Randall and Catherine and John for all that you've contributed. And it's been a really very fine time. Thank you very
I'm
much.
glad. Yay. Davidian, you had one last
I
question?
do. And for those who know me, I
Carry that, you're
promise
next.
this is my last question. So back to the bunny video, very quickly. I believe it was where he says, okay, a word's going to come to you, spell it. And she spelled out fear. And doesn't that engage the intellectual mind? Like, how do you navigate that space? Now she's spelling, so she's now in a different state, perhaps, or skirting the edge. Or why wouldn't that engage the intellect?
Well,
No,
I'm sorry.
Randall, go ahead.
Okay. I feel he was just asking for a word, and I kind of see it as a kind of an extension of idiomotor to do something like that. That if there's not something that is coming apparent to the conscious mind, that maybe the subconscious can come up with that. I don't usually do that myself, but I've seen that for
A
him.
Ouija board of sorts? Like,
Yeah, something like that.
She may not know what she's spelling, in other words. It's just coming out as letter by letter.
Oh, they may or may not know as they're spelling it. Yeah, Catherine, what did you want to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm basing this on an experience I had with a fellow hypnotherapist years ago. She said, "What decision did you make about life based on that experience you had as a baby?" And I blurted out this sentence that shocked me consciously, but I knew it came from my subconscious. I just knew, and it had shaped my whole life up until that point. But it was just boom, it was just there. It was not a conscious response whatsoever. And I see that spelling. It's just those letters are just coming through her from her subconscious. I don't see that as conscious at all. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay, Gary, I saw that you had a hand up.
Yes, I did. I have a question for Randall, I think. I wanted to know, when did Gil Boyne stop teaching out of Glendale? I mean, I'm sorry. Out of Glendale, California.
I think it was around 1993. I know it was, somewhere like that. And then he went to London, but was still teaching part-time. I remember it was a huge decision for him at the time, but he continued to be very active in the field for all the way until the end.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Lisa. What's your question?
Hi. Thank you, Randall. Thank you, Catherine, for this opportunity, this format. I'm sure he is smiling down and taking it all in, as you said. I was one of his last students, and I am honored to say this. I've been very emotional to come on today, but it was 1997 when I graduated. I was one of the last students right here in Glendale. So the bodacious man of big heart and big stature. And I thank Randall, Catherine, and especially Butler, all of you who are spearheading and still holding forth for who we are and what we are doing. And after 25 years, I can say there is no room for me to retire yet.
Thank you so much for the correction there. I was wondering if I was a little bit later than 93. So 97, that's great. Thanks.
Okay.
If I may quickly, just the last one. I had a very, very honored situation. I took hypnotherapy training to Hungary in 2008, and right after my very first class, one of the first graduates got sued by the Psychological Association. So when I wrote to Gil, immediately with Dr. John Butler, we organized a trip. They came to Hungary, and we had interviews, TV interviews, newspaper, everything. And many times since that, they tried to sue some of the hypnotherapists. And so far, every single time they failed. So this is how Gil, his last class was in Hungary. and a few months later he passed away. So he did it even to the very last day he was working and protecting and helping us. And
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Attila.
Anyone else? Yes, Anna.
I'll be really quick. This is for Randall. Randall, do you know if Gil spent time with Ellison, Pearls and Rogers? Because I can see the influence in his work. At least that's what I think.
But, well, I know that he was, you know, got training in various ways and with various people. Stanley Kellerman, for example, with bioenergetics and various people. But Fritz Perls definitely. He was. They would discuss their experiences with him, and Perls was so colorful and you know those various times that he and Anne went there were very, very influential to him. So he connected with a number of other leaders in the field of humanistic and transpersonal psychology as it was developing.
Thank you.
Yes, Patricia.
Well, I just have a tiny little thing to say. I was fortunate enough to attend 2 of those advanced presentations with Gil and John Butler at HTI back then. And I was just struck by what a big heart that man had and how impeccable he looked up there in his suit with his shock of white hair, and how effortlessly he moved people through their therapeutic work. And the thing which I thought was so marvelous was that the big takeaway for me was he said, one of the problems and probably one of the things which torments most people working therapeutically is that they believe that they are unlovable. And I thought that small thing is so powerful and so functional that it can actually help to support a huge quality and variety of work to help transform, you know, therapeutically people's sense of themselves and their lives. So I was very thankful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just mention that Gil was 82 years old, somewhere there when you saw him, and he was at the top of his game.
That just means so many of us still have so much room to grow, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. Anyone else have a question or a comment?
Gil hypnotized actually a singer in Hungary in TV, and he asked him a question, and Gil gave him a suggestion that you will be the greatest singer. And you guys, believe it or not, this guy became one of the most famous singer in Hungary ever since.
Wow.
This is a true story.
Oh my.
Oh,
A quick question here.
sure.
Sorry. There's a website called called gilboyneonline.com. Is his official website?
I don't think it is. I think it's somebody else that's put Gil's work up. Do you know, Randall?
I don't know that particular one. I do know that I think you can get both, where there's a website that's trying to honor Gil, and there could also be one that's trying to, you know, I know that unfortunately in the last few years, when Gil was still alive, there was someone that was, you know, basically stealing videos and you know, DVDs and promoting them and selling them, and John Butler and in fact partly after Gil died, and John Butler has had to deal with that. So so you know, it depends. I don't know that particular site, but I know they can go both ways. So be very careful about not supporting a website that is not officially approved by the ACHE.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to add to that, Randall, because I did talk to John about that particular site. And that was somebody, as you said, that Gil was working with just towards the end of his life, and then kind of went wayward onto it. So that is exactly as you have said. I can concur with that.
Thank you.
Well, this is nice. I'm seeing Janet wrote a comment, and as a relatively newbie, I'm so grateful for what I've learned here, and I'm so appreciative to the ACHE. That's nice. You know, that That's why we're doing this, you know?
I just want to say happy birthday, Gil.
Let's all say it all at one time. 1, 2, 3.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, Gil.
And thank you, Gil.
What a
Thank
great
you.
way
Happy
to
birthday
wrap
and
up.
thank everybody
Well, I'd like to
for
thank
coming.
everyone who took the time to join us today. We were looking forward to this, and from the comments, I can tell that it was appreciated. So, you know, mission accomplished. So, wishing everyone a wonderful rest of the week. It's a great day to be great. So, it's a great week to be great. Wishing everybody a great rest of it. Okay? Enjoy.
Thank you.
And have a good-
Thank
You
you.
all.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I
you.
appreciate you guys.